Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our illuminating content. Here is episode 167.
The material that holds this whole holiday season together is love.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Diana Zaheer. Diana is a past fire starter who's been featured on podcasts episode 146, episode 156, and 163. She's also a veteran homeschooler of 2 and works with others on healing. Her family has worked and lived all over the world, studying from top healers as well. Diana, welcome back to the Luminous Mind.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
This is going to hopefully be a really helpful conversation that we have of grounding and mindfulness and meditation, of ways that we can get ourselves through the holidays with a lot less stress. And we have maybe 5 different tools that we're going to discuss today. Do you want to go ahead and give us an idea of maybe how we can start using these, implementing these tools into our lives?
Thank you. I think it's a perfect time for us to look at how we can support ourselves during a time. The holiday season is so full of excitement and stress, and to give ourselves a little extra support, a little extra attention is loving for us, and it just helps the whole thing go more smoothly. And I'm wondering if we might want to just take a minute right now, all of us together, and just settle into our chairs a little bit more. Wherever you are, if you're sitting in a chair, if you're lying down comfortably, just to let yourself sink in slowly for a couple of moments, a couple of breaths. Notice the chair. Feel the chair holding your body. Notice your feet on the floor. Notice how the breath moves through your body, maybe more easily in some places than others. And just see what it's like to arrive here. No expectation. Nothing has to happen right now. Just to have a little bit of space. I think the things we're going to talk about today are all in service of a moment like this, where we can slow down and just be here for a moment with ourselves.
Well, and I always picture holidays like this, very just comfortable, sitting there, enjoying the time, and it never, ever happens that way. So let's kind of talk about maybe one of our first tools of having your kind of fun and maybe what you mean by that.
Exactly. Well, you just said, I have this wish to have holidays that are more relaxed and more comfortable and people just kind of sitting together, enjoying themselves. And I think deep in our hearts, we all have these wishes of what a holiday feeling is for us, what feels cozy, what feels nourishing. But there's a lot to do. And sometimes it's hard to accomplish everything in a relaxed way. And we have a lot of people in our space, and there may be people with a lot of emotions. So things develop differently than the vision we might have hoped for. And that can cause stress for us. So I think if we can come to this event with our intention, our wish, like maybe for you, a really great holiday will include some quiet time with family. And so you have that intention and you figure out a way to schedule that in. For other people, their kind of fun might mean singing together or dancing together or taking a walk in nature or visiting relatives. Whatever it is that feels valuable to you, include that on your wish list in addition to making the food and hosting the friends and creating this jolly environment, let your wishes be a part of what's on the menu.
Because we, especially as mothers, I think sometimes we're trying to recreate a feeling of what we, expectation maybe of what other people want. Do you think too that maybe narrowing it down? One of the things I do is I have too many, expectations of things that I want to happen, but maybe really thinking about what the most vital part of that season might be for you, and then trying to do that. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's a beautiful idea. Because I think we do have very long lists of what would be ideal to have happen. And we don't necessarily realize how much effort that will take.
Yeah.
And we're so attached to making sure those things happen, we forget the quality that we wanted to imbibe our holidays with. I think some of my most precious holidays as a little girl, I remember listening to my mother and my auntie and my grandmother in the kitchen preparing food while I was going to bed, and just hearing that feeling of family and cozy, and there wasn't a lot going on there. They weren't overstretching themselves. They were enjoying togetherness, and there was this creation of an environment that felt really lovely for a child. So I think it can be really simple, and I think when we have less to do, we can be more present a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, and I like the simplicity. I think searching for the most simple way for you to have an amazing holiday like that thought of a family cooking together, might be what you kind of envision, but that's so simple to recreate. And then, like you said, we were kind of talking about this before we started to record, but sometimes we can get really lost in everything that's happening around us that we lose the moment, that we separate ourselves from it. One of the points that you have put down is to practice an undivided heart. Maybe we should move into that, of what an undivided heart might look like.
Yeah, good. Well, I'll just comment about what you said a moment ago. We are very easily distracted. And I think we're easily distracted because we have really loving hearts and we want everybody to be happy. So if we hear a distraction, there may be a belief, there's unhappiness and I have to fix that. So that can really take a lot of energy in addition to all of the physical tasks. If there are a lot of people in our environment and we want to make sure there's harmony there. So going back to that simplicity really serves us on a lot of levels. And there's a lovely statement by a Zen tradition teacher named Adyashanti. It's a little koan, and he says, the most important thing is the most important thing. So we just have to figure out, what is that? And maybe I remember that when I'm sitting down to make my list for all the holiday planning, but I can also practice it in the moment when I'm cooking and there are all these people and there are all these things going on. What is the most important thing right now? Is it the mashed potatoes, or is it sitting and talking with this person for 5 minutes? So it can be a supportive partner as we're going through the holiday season. What is the most important thing?
Yeah. Well, and I think putting your own kind of going back to your own kind of fun, last holiday, I actually needed a lot of time to just have more quiet space. And I was really grateful when I, put that out to my family that I had support to do that, that people weren't angry at me because I wasn't trying to recreate the holiday that they saw fit. But maybe sometimes, especially as a mother, that you're the one that's going to be implementing this, that if you feel like you need the time, and the space to take for yourself to do that and not feel guilty about that kind of thing.
That's so wonderful that you were able to put that out and feel support of your family, because we are kind of at the hub here in creating holidays and creating family time. So if we feel more balanced, it's going to be so much better for everybody, right? If I feel really stretched and pulled, I'll be sharing that energy with them. So how wonderful that could be what happened in your holiday.
Well, and that was a rare case, because I have done holidays where, I'm feeling that, but I don't put that out there. And then I still, I'm like, okay, I can't take any time for myself, or I can't really express, even though I'm feeling extremely, all of my stress, anxieties, all those are really heightened. I just push through it, making it miserable for myself, which I've done. I've probably made it miserable for other people too.
Well, we don't realize that whatever we're doing with ourselves, we're actually helping other people. We have a belief it's selfish. We talked about this in one of the statements before, that selfish wisdom is so ancient and so timeless that if I am caring for myself, if I am helping myself feel very balanced and very whole, then I am blessing my family. So taking that time, it's really not just for me. It is for me, and that has tremendous value, but it is blessing everybody.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and move that into the next discussion, maybe taking a break. If we go ahead with our holiday plans and we start to feel, if we are looking kind of introspectively that things are, not well within us, let's talk about taking that break and blessing others around us.
So this is a busy world. This is a doer world. And there's a lot of imprinting from the family holidays we grew up with. And probably we didn't see a lot of caregivers taking breaks during the holiday. So we carry pictures in our minds of what we're supposed to do as mom or as dad. But I do think that if we can practice including our own inner experience, we can be informed about how there's value here. Like just starting here today and taking a moment to go inside and to feel, okay, what's it like in my body right now? What's it like to feel the chair under me? What's it like to breathe? How's my breath moving? If I have these pictures of how holidays are supposed to be, so if they're there, I can just acknowledge they're there. But I also include what's happening in my body. Maybe I have a headache. Maybe my feet are hurting from standing so long in the kitchen. Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe I'm thirsty. Maybe I need to use the bathroom. There's a way we can include our human experience. And when we do that, everybody benefits. So it might be really hard for me to imagine taking a 10-minute break. But I realize that in my life, when I do take a 10-minute break on an average day, I'm so replenished. I have so much more energy. My mind is clear. I feel lighter. I feel like I'm able to function so much better. If I have that lived experience in my regular life, then I can appreciate that will also benefit my holiday. So it's kind of experimenting before the holidays, if we can, to see the value of that. So we know it, we trust it. But if that hasn't been something we've been doing beforehand, just to have some curiosity. Like, well, I watched my mom do the holidays like this, and I'm kind of doing the same, but I'm not feeling happy in myself right now. What if I took 10 minutes to do something for me that helped me feel really good? And then come back and I can see, am I the same? Am I different? Was there value in that for me? So it's more of an inclusion model instead of operating just from some mental picture of this is what it means to offer a holiday to my family.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing. I'm growing up. I do remember the stress or the negative emotions being there a lot because of that, and that has affected my ability to want to hold Sunday dinners or some of those things that my family did because the experience wasn't necessarily, there weren't positive emotions there. And so really that your own introspection really helps you create a better experience for your family, so that they overall want to recreate the home life that you're offering to them. Well, and let's kind of talk about too, when we get in with family, sometimes, there's a lot of, we all think differently. We all have different ideas of the ways that things should be. Let's talk about maybe some of those reactions that we might have when we're with others.
Good. So this goes back to that undivided heart that you were mentioning before. And I think the link here is inclusiveness. So if, as we were just saying, if I'm including my own experience and I'm seeing that there's just more abundance. There's more benefit. If I'm taking care of me and then there's all of this goodness coming out of me, that's what I can share. I'm not overstretched. I'm not resentful. So the same thing happens when other people are around. It's very easy to segment things, especially right now in the world. There's a lot of stress in people's lives. There's a lot of change, and that's stressful. Doesn't matter what perspective you come from. Change is just stressful. So here we're bringing all these people into our life. We may already be dealing with not getting overstretched ourselves. And then we've got all these energies coming into our home. Maybe there's emotional energy or political energy or physical energy that is going to come toward us, and we're going to feel the impact of that. So when I allow myself to feel everything I'm feeling, when I'm inclusive, just as I did before about the picture of my mom doing holidays, but there's also this piece of what it is like for me today, standing in my kitchen. Both get to be there. When I do that, I feel much more balanced. I feel more alive. I feel more wellness. I'm more able to respond to the situation. The same thing is true of these people in my home. There may be a relative or a friend that I care about very much. I may have a long relationship with them. They're dear to my heart, but we may be different in many, many ways. And so if I focus only on our differences, or if I focus only on the fact that I love them, I may not feel peaceful in myself because I'm not including everything. We feel really peaceful when we have permission inside ourselves just to allow everything to be there. I don't need to say anything necessarily. I don't need to do anything necessarily, but I've created this inner harbor where it is peaceful and it is powerful to allow me to be there with safety. And so to give myself permission to notice, okay, here's this person. It's hard for me to be around them right now. And I really love them. And all those things are true. So my experience of feeling all of that gives me a kind of space inside. And from that space, I may choose to have a little more of a buffer with them, or I may choose to interact with them. But because it's even in me, I'm not pushing anything away, I don't feel sideways when I talk to them or when I have a little bit of space, because I'm resting more comfortably in me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and we kind of talked about this on our last podcast about reactions and stuff and how we can, react better. A lot of it, I love talking to you because, we always think that, well, if this person was more like this, then we, this experience would be better. But really our reactions are our responsibility, of how we react to somebody. We can't make somebody be the way that we want them to be, create the energy that we want them to come with, those type of things. But we can decide how we react to their, the stuff that they're also putting out there. Do you have any tips? We were talking before we started recording that, with the heightened political season and there's a variety of things. Religion can come up. There's all kinds of different ways that things that maybe we don't agree with can enter into our home and create a bad reaction. We've talked about looking inside ourselves and checking our love for them, but do you have any other comments about that, of maybe ways that we can improve those reactions?
Well, I think this simple acknowledgement of, I love this person and we're different, is a great place to start in our relationship with ourselves, because people are different. That is a big part of what's happening on the planet right now. We are not the same, but it doesn't mean my love has to go away. It may mean I want a little more space from someone, especially if we're making different choices about behavior. But in terms of the fact that this is true for you and this is true for me and I still love you, that is a very healing thing for us to experience.
Yeah. And even expressing that out loud. I have seen that happen before when tensions get heightened and stuff, to almost reach over and say, even though we disagree, I love you. And, you show forth that feeling for them. That can be a way to change the reaction too, even the emotions in the room.
I agree. Anytime we tell the truth like that, it is very transforming and it is very calming, because basically we're saying, I don't want to do this dance anymore, and I love you. So we're leaving the playing field, but in a very graceful, loving way.
Nobody has to be right?
We don't have to be the same. And I think that's a huge part of what's happening on the planet right now in all these different ways is differences of a great variety and a great magnitude are here. So it's going to take some time for whatever needs to happen, that this can become more peaceful externally, but we can practice having it be more peaceful internally. And part of that also may be recognizing that you have a boundary around certain things. Again, with the awareness that there's love too. So it's strength and love together. To be able to say to somebody, I love you and I'm so happy you're here. I'm so glad to see you. And I'm not interested in talking about politics, or I'm not interested in talking about religion. It's just not something I want to do right now. No one can make us do that. And that's not a way we have to interact to show our love for someone. So standing in our truth, standing on our ground, we're being ourselves, we're being our strength, and we're offering our love.
Well, and I really love the idea that we do have boundaries around different topics and stuff. I think sometimes our emotions can become very on the cuff, very close to the surface, especially with social media and stuff. We can see pretty readily how somebody might feel about a certain thing, especially if they're pretty active on those medias. And maybe that might be a place where, we're practicing the undivided heart or those type of things where before we even enter the situation, that we have been able to clear our minds of those things. Does that make sense? Like if you're holding bitterness towards somebody before you even see them, most likely you're going to have a bad reaction. Before we go on, let's listen to this message. This is the last new release podcast for the Luminous Mind in the year of 2016. Yay! I feel really blessed to have been able to connect and talk with so many very amazing contributors over the year. I really think that I learned far more from this podcast than anyone, but I do want to thank you so much for listening. With your help, we were able to grow our listenership while also cutting back on releases, which literally saved my sanity. So thank you for sharing the podcast with your friends and relatives. We so appreciate it. Through the next few weeks, we will be playing the best of with the 3 most downloaded podcasts in 2016. Then we plan to pick it back up with some great new episodes in the new year. So until then, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Back to the Luminous Mind with Diana Zaheer with some helpful holiday tips for less stress.
Yeah, I think there's so much reactivity on the planet right now. You feel it with people you don't even know, just out in the market or driving around. It's not that everybody's overreacting, but there's a lot of intense energy right now. There's just a lot of intensity coming up out of people in different ways. So if there's someone in our family who's been very opinionated, or one of our friends who's been very opinionated, they're going to come, we might be already feeling afraid. We might already be feeling like we need to protect ourselves, or we want to launch an attack with them. So we need to start with ourselves and just see, again, what kind of holiday do I want to have? What do I want to have happen for me in this day? And if I care about this person, but I don't feel the same, and I don't really want to interact in a way that causes us both unhappiness and stress, what do I want to do with this opportunity? What is the day I want to give myself?
Oh, I love that. Well, and kind of going back to the kind of fun that you want to have and the memories that you want to make, I think that really does help a lot with our reactions, to keep that in mind, maybe those goals up front. And especially if we can simplify it, like we've talked about before, that will help with our reactions.
I think there's a way our critical voice can get into all of this. And, we all have these critical voice messages that we're processing reality with during times of stress. And a hook that can happen a lot, and if you're in a room with a bunch of people and there's a lot of critical voice energy, it can just escalate in the energy of the whole room. But if I really believe somewhere inside myself that what's happening for the other person is my fault, and we can innocently believe this. It can be an old belief we bring that's still here, and it gets triggered during times of more stress. But if this person is at our gathering and they're having a really hard time, it's a good thing to check out. Do I feel like somewhere deep inside it's my fault this person is having a hard time, or I need to fix it? There's no judgment that might arise for us, but we can be curious about that. Is it actually true that what's happening for them over there is my fault? I might really care about them. I might really love them. I might want to help take away their suffering right now. But is it really my fault? That's a way we can really come at ourselves in a vigilant manner, almost like a villainous manner, to start blaming ourselves for other people's experience.
Yeah, I agree.
We all have very warm hearts. And I think we talked about this during the critical voice episode, that when we have a reality check, it just helps everything expand a little bit better. We feel more here. There's more access for guidance. We're more present. If I realize, well, this person's having a hard time right now because there's a lot happening in our world. So many people I know are having trouble adjusting. So here's another one of them. That doesn't mean it's my fault. And when I give myself that clarity, it's almost like we pull a layer back and we're more here. And we might even find ourselves feeling more warm-hearted toward that person. Because when I believe something's my fault, I get tight, I get hard, and I feel like I have to defend myself because I believe I did something wrong.
Yeah. And reactions can happen. I mean, I've seen that a lot in families. Like, you can be checking your emotions and, checking your reactions, but you can't control what happens amongst other people. But sometimes, especially as the host, I mean, if you're the host or whatever, you are feeling a lot of guilt about how this whole event or whatever may be perceived. And you take a lot of responsibility for that, but we can't necessarily take responsibility for everyone else's emotions and reactions.
We can't. And the more objective we can be when we're not blaming ourselves for it, just to realize, okay, here's this person and this person, and I know these people, right? I know what could potentially happen, right, between the two of them, given the state of the world right now. So if I know that, and on some level, I feel, whatever we want to call it, responsibility or protectiveness toward them, I can be mindful of how we could create a situation where there's less buildup between the two of them. Or if there was some energy that started to escalate, I could step in if I felt present and just say, gosh, I would love it if we weren't all talking about politics, somehow to break it up in a lighthearted fashion. But ultimately, I'm not responsible for what's happening between the two of those people.
That is true. So great. Yeah. And like you said, trying to do what you can to de-escalate the situation in the fact that you're expressing your own love for each one of them can probably do a lot. It can bring everyone at least back to maybe a consciousness of, what we hope to all get out of the experience versus just that particular moment.
That's right. Anything we can do by ourselves in that room to deepen into our own hearts, to deepen into our own bodies, we are helping the energy in the room. Because what happens when people get stressed out is they go in their heads and they think about things and they want to be right. And it becomes more of a discussion from the level of thought. But if I'm bringing in my heart with this experience of the undivided heart, okay, here's this person, here's that person, here's how I feel about who they are in my life, here's how I feel about what's happening right now. And, maybe as I'm standing in the kitchen, I can feel my feet on the ground, or I can feel my hands on the counter, and I can let myself experience the sensations in my body. All of those things anchor us into the present moment. Maybe I can feel my breath a little bit. That brings a presence of mind, a presence of spirit, a presence of heart to our gathering, where there's a witnessing presence, there's a guidance. There are new ingredients, not just thinking, not just people talking at each other and not listening. And even if there's one person in the room doing that, that's a huge contribution to our event.
It can help bring the whole group back to
Absolutely.
the importance of what's going on.
Absolutely.
And we really do hope that our events and our holidays are joyful and the emotions can help, because those can be life-altering situations or experiences, especially for our children, to hope create, that feeling of what we want the holidays to be about. But, sometimes as a mother and as parents, especially around the holiday, there's no wonder that depression spikes during the holiday and anxiety gets in there, is because of our critical voice. And we've discussed our critical voice a lot in the past and some in this podcast too. But, let's talk about how important that is to listen to that critical voice of around the holidays and how that can help us.
Sure. So what we know about the critical voice is that it comes into our attention as a way to try and help us. It's this distorted guardian angel energy that really feels it needs to enter the scene to save the day. So we're feeling afraid, we're feeling overwhelmed, we don't know what to do. All these inner experiences trigger this arrival of the critical voice that says, here, I'll help you with those things. But we know it doesn't feel good, and we feel tight, and we feel constricted, and we're not really present. So when we can notice the critical voice has arrived on the scene, that's when we have the potential to shift. And all of these things can happen during the holidays. As we talked about just a few minutes ago, we can get really overstretched during the holidays. We can get really overwhelmed. We can feel a lot of not knowing. Sometimes we might feel afraid. So just by ourselves, the critical voice may be busy. And then you bring in other people who are feeling overwhelmed or stressed. And then you've got their critical voices. So you've got this currency flying around. It's always useful to just acknowledge, there's the critical voice, either in my head or I just saw it shoot at me from the other person. And to take a few breaths and try and find yourself again. But the bottom line here is, if my critical voice is talking to me, that is telling me that I'm looking for loving and gentle attention with myself. Even if the whole room is full of people shooting critical voice messages at each other, if I am feeling there with myself, in a loving and patient and curious way, it won't touch me. But if I'm feeling worn down and my critical voice is busy, or I'm believing the things those other people's critical voices are telling me, I will suffer. So this is an inside job. If my critical voice is activated for any reason, either just with me alone or somebody says something and I start feeling badly about myself, all that means is there's something inside me that wants my attention. There's some innocence. There's some sweetness. There's some smallness that is looking for contact with me.
Yeah. So your critical voice needs you. And that fits in nicely with what we talked about before of taking a break. Sometimes practicing stepping back and doing your own introspection might help other people around you. let's kind of talk about, I mean, one of the reasons why we wanted to get this out so quickly in the first part of the season was that we could practice our own introspection, kind of show us how that looks. And then let's talk about how healthy that is for our kids, trying to, and we discussed this before, when we can control those reactions and we can work on talking nice to ourselves, what a wonderful way to spread a better holiday for our own children.
Well, that was just popping for me as you were talking, that I think it'd be so great for each one of us to give some time and sincerely look inside our hearts to see, what do I want from this holiday season? Like, why is this important to me? What would feel like just the most beautiful holiday time for me and my family? For me alone, for me with my, close family, for me with my extended family. Life is such a miraculous gift. I mean, I think that's the thing I keep coming back to these days during such a time of change and not knowing. There are so many things that are in our lives that we don't know. We will never know how we got into these bodies. The gift of life is right here with us right now, and it is so precious and so priceless. And it's really not our job to figure it out. It's our job to just enjoy it and honor it and live it and do the best we can and have a clean heart and go to bed and wake up in the morning and love our families. And so from that perspective, like, how does the holiday season fit in with that? Like, if you and I have this mysterious gift of life, how incredible. And now we get to have the holidays with people we love. What an abundant blessing. So what would we like to do with that? What is the wish in our hearts for this season? I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah. Well, and that idea of feeling that we have to be perfect, I mean, that is one of those huge critical voice moments, that each has to be a Norman Rockwell type of experience. But maybe that's not what's the most important, that the most important is definitely those emotions and those feelings around ourselves.
Well, and, something like a Norman Rockwell or a Thomas Kincaid, I mean, I think what really touches us about those images is that they embody something. They embody feelings of warmth and cozy and togetherness and the celebration of life. And we know from our own daily lives that is not a perfect thing. But it's not really required that it be perfect. It's here. Our job is to show up for it to the best we can. I had this teacher who used to talk about good enough parenting, not perfect parenting. A good enough holiday, not a perfect holiday. Because the material that holds this whole holiday season together is love.
Yeah.
It's not that turkey has to be cooked perfectly or the present was just right. It's this love substance. That's why we have holidays, to remember love. So how do we want to do that with our families? How do we want to share love together?
Well, and one of my favorite Christmas stories that we read as a family every year had to do with a young girl who she came from a very large family and her mother had passed away that same year. Her father was very poor as far as having a lot of things to give the kids. But one thing that he did give them is he set them down in a very amazing, quiet way and relived a story for him that was really important, which was the birth of Jesus. And he relived this story for them and then made them very simple gifts, set them all to sleep in the most loving fashion possible and made them tiny little gifts with his own hands. But that's the Christmas she remembered the most because of the love that was shown there.
Yeah. And I think if we think back as adults to our fondest memories of the holiday seasons, that's what we will remember too. It's what we remember about the important adults in our lives. It wasn't necessarily what they taught us, but how they were with us. Their presence, their love, how their hearts related to us. That's, I think, what we hand down to our children, this legacy of love. So there may be a cranky relative. There may be a political conversation for a moment that we wish didn't happen. But what's the bigger picture here? What is the flavor of the day? It's filled with the substance of love. And I think that's what really matters. However, we can keep coming back to love inside ourselves, in our own practices, how we can find that thread and how we can see that thread in our environment, how we can support that.
Definitely. I love the fact that you use the legacy, because that's exactly how I was hoping that we would close with what kind of legacy that we are leaving. Because we do have people watching us of how we adults handle our own lives and our own relationships within our families. And really,
of course.
That's the legacy that we want to leave, is how to behave and be better taken care of, at least in ourselves. And that doesn't come from gifts, and it doesn't come from having the right turkey and any of that, but definitely those feelings. Yes, just give us some of your parting words that you would have, and then let's also close with your contact information so people can find you if they need a friend during this holiday season.
Of course. Well, I'm so grateful we have the gift of holiday seasons in our lives. I think it's such a blessing that we have these changes of season and times to gather and to enjoy all this abundance in our lives and to just be together, to be ourselves and to allow love to be there in whatever way it can be there, to not push ourselves, but just to invite in love and spirit, whatever that feels like for us. And so I would wish that each one of us can be as kind to ourselves as possible during this season, include ourselves, notice our bodies, notice our hearts, notice what matters to us. And if we make a mistake or somebody else makes a mistake, we just reset. We go back to the basics of our anchors in love.
Oh, I love the idea of resetting. That if, something happens and it doesn't end up being the perfect holiday of what we were hoping for, the feelings that we were hoping, that we can reset that moment, right? And move back. It can end up being a good holiday in the end.
That's right. We just keep resetting. And, there's a bigger vision here. These moments that aren't necessarily perfect in their own way, they may be just perfect, because they may somehow open someone's heart. So just to trust that. It's not our job to interpret it. Just keep resetting. Reset back to love. Reset back to our ground. Reset to our tools and our anchors. And just keep remembering all these blessings that are in front of us.
Oh, and I do love that idea of, kind of in that movie Inside Out, when Joy finally realizes that she wouldn't have joy without the sadness. That sometimes, we do have, things don't go the way that we want. We have the relationships that aren't the best or whatever, but sometimes through the sadness or the bitterness or different things like that, that we can improve and have that joy at a later date, maybe.
Exactly. We don't necessarily have all the cards here, and that's a good thing. We just have our job. So to get clear about my job with myself, my job with this holiday, to allow all this love, all this joy, all this goodness to be what I wish for. And when I have a human moment, to see that and just to reset.
Great. All right. And can you give us your contact information, how we can get
in
touch with you?
You can reach me on my webpage, which is dianazaheer.com. And I have lots of resources there, places you can go to get support in the healing rooms. And that might be especially nice during the holiday times.
Exactly. And that's a great way to, end our podcast. And I will be sure to connect Diana's webpage up with the show notes of this podcast. But once again, I'm so grateful to have you come on. I wish and hope that we all have a wonderful holiday season and that we've been a help in that.
Yes, indeed. Happy holidays.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Diana Zaheer, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out the Services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of illuminating content, go to the Sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.